Hi, this is Kendra from Pencil and Pigment, and today I wanted to do a little chat while we draw together. I am in my planner, Midori Habino. Here's a pencil board. I'll link all the products I'm using in the description box below. I'm going to be using today my Rote Ring Isograph. This is the 0.3. I like it. I'm into it. We're going to see how weird I can get. So I did a video, and I'm going to guess maybe a year and a half ago. I think it was a year and a half ago, where I talked about like what happens to your hobby when you make your hobby your job. So for those of us that love art so much, it's the only thing we could ever see ourselves doing. And it started out as a hobby, as a thing just for fun, whenever we had free time, whatever. I'll talk about it in terms of me, I guess, is probably the easiest way to do that. I've always loved drawing. I've done some unique things. I had my very first art show, like public art show in high school. That was open to the public. The second Saturday of every month, all the galleries open up and people can go around and buy art. That was my very first one. And at the time I was really big into acrylic painting, so it was a lot of acrylic on canvas and stuff, and I don't even know where photos would be so I could show you stuff, but again, think animals, think portraits, think things like that, and it's a little bit of that. Anyway, and at the time, again, I was young, so I was 17, 18. I was an older senior, I think, in high school. The pressure to put out and make sure I have, 8 to 10 really good gallery quality paintings is a lot. It's a lot to ask. But I was able to fairly do that. I don't know. I wasn't a good high school student, and I apologize to my teachers. Thank you for being patient with me when I did weird stuff. So, the question was in the video that I did, like, what happens to your hobby? And the truth is, you lose your hobby when it becomes something that you monetize. So if you're a part-time artist, or you have, successful boundaries where you limit yourself as to how much pressure or what you require of yourself to create, unless it's like a full-time thing and you have your time management and you have your support system and you have how you're doing that, but you lose your hobby. You lose art as a hobby. Over time, you just do. And it doesn't mean you don't enjoy drawing or creating. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the scope of where it's at in your brain sort of shifts. And the trick then is, how do artists get hobbies? Because the temptation is to switch to a different medium and have that, because once you're comfortable with the arts and creating, it's not a huge mental shift to be like, okay, well, I'm a painter, I'm going to make photography my hobby, or I'm a ceramicist, I'm going to make sewing my hobby. And while that works with a lot of people, that doesn't really work with me. And maybe I'm not the only one, and that's kind of why I'm talking about this. When I try to make other different art forms my hobby, it's not that I monetize them. I get locked into the mindset of high churn out for creating, because I associate that with work. And it doesn't feel like a hobby, and it's really hard for me to maintain a hobby level interest in something that's creative and art. Like, I have a lot of trouble trying to keep that boundary and just do it once in a while for fun. I end up doing it with the vim and vigor that I do every other art thing, which is all the time, every day. So it is not a viable solution for me to be like, okay, well, I love drawing and painting, so for my hobby, I'm going to do black and white photography. I tried it. I was doing photography every day. I can't not every day with creating stuff. And so that's not a good one for me. It's not. And I love photography, and I love doing pottery. But again, there's just no boundary there with trying to maintain it as a hobby level interest. It becomes a thing where I set goals and I set priorities and things I want to do with it, and then I end up doing it at a pace that is work. So, what is the solution? Where do I get hobbies? And the truth of the matter is, the hobbies that I have had, that I've been able to maintain over the years, are things very, very far removed from drawing and painting. And by drawing, I include pastels and charcoals and inks and colored pencils, like drawings, just dry media, wet media, okay? I'm not a digital artist, and if I was going to try and make digital art my thing, I would run into the same problem of going at it too hard and trying to do it every day. So there will be none of that. The hobbies I'm able to maintain are ones where I am kind of forced into doing things that are so unrelated to drawing and creating that it works. So one of them is gardening. And I live in the northern hemisphere. So right now is summertime, and right now there's a lot of planting, there's a lot of weeding. There's a ton of stuff to be done in the summertime. In the wintertime, there isn't so much. And this is where it helps me, is because I don't have any indoor grow lights. We get a ton of rain. I am forced to have this as a seasonal hobby. It is something that I cannot burn out from because I cannot do it all the time. I don't get to do it all the time, and I do not buy things that allow me to do it all the time. So things I have done, and depending on where you live and your situation, it doesn't have to be a huge money-breaking thing if you want to try a little bit of gardening. If you're just renting a room and you don't have access to like a huge plot of land, I mean, you could buy a pot, you could buy a little bit of soil and one packet of seeds and just start small. And it's just a really relaxing thing to watch something grow from a seed and to cultivate that. And it doesn't have to be something you harvest and eat. We grow pansies. I'll show you I'll show you one of my gardens. So not to show you where I live or anything. I'll show you my indoor garden in the kitchen. We have a lot of aloe, we have herbs, and then we have little pansy type deals, and those are edible. They taste decent in salad. You can sugar them, put them on cupcakes. So, and then, a morning glory that's purple because one of our daughters is purple obsessed, and we gotta support all that. So, gardening for me is a good solution because one, it's not at my desk, and drawing keeps me at my desk. It gets my hands in dirt. I am not using my muscles the same way I do as I draw, so that is good for hand cramps. And it is a seasonal thing, so I cannot become so super addicted, obsessive of it that I do it every day and all the time. It's seasonal, so it's a forced boundary that I look forward to it in the spring. When the spring starts to roll around, I get super, super excited because I've been dying to do it and I haven't done it in months. And it keeps it fresh. So that I would consider a very successful hobby that has nothing to do with art, that is so unrelated that I don't confuse it. And it's enjoyable to me. Another hobby I really, really enjoy is books. And I'm going to say books over movies because if you're an artist or a creator, I know you have an amazing imagination. And when you read, you are able to delve into that and kind of lean into your imagination without having the pressure of having to create something. And with movies, sometimes we are shown what, the director or the writer, what they think things should look like, what the character should look like, what the character should dress like. And when you or I read a book, our imagination is so much more vivid and wild. And it's a great way to sort of tap into that and lean into that without having the pressures of having to whip out a sketchbook or try and put something up on social media or try and create something to sell. Like, it's just leaning into your imagination and letting it sort of flow loosely without any pressure anywhere. And for that reason, I would say that reading is a great hobby for artists. Support your local library. Many of us do budgets and do things like that, so a library can be a wonderful resource to tap into, to get all the different things that could possibly spark our imagination and just entertain us in a relaxing way. So that is a very successful hobby, and I go through periods with reading where I'll read like 5 books in a week and then I'll take a couple weeks off. But that's reading. You can go at your own pace, and that's kind of the joy of it, And with books and with writers, it all comes to an end. So it's not, creating and doing art is kind of a never-ending stream that has no start and has no end. Like, you just keep going. Like, once you finish a project, you're on to another project. It doesn't end, really. And books come to an end, and gardening comes to an end, and hobbies that end like that have a start and a finish, are a great hobby to have for creators, I think, in my mind. And I think that's why I've been so successful with those. Another one that I recommend is something physical. So the thing with a lot of artists is we sit, not all of us sit down. Some of us hike around and draw in the wilds, or, bring our easel, fun places. But it tends to be a more sedentary type of job, career, interest. And while there's nothing wrong with that, having a hobby that's more physical is a great way, not only just for your health, but to do something completely different. So physical hobbies like dancing and music and moving around, hiking, getting outside, any sort of like sport, archery, things that are just so completely different from creating. And again, if you get into sports and there's adult leagues and there's all kinds of fun stuff, there's a start and there's an end, and it's just completely unrelated. It's the world outside of art. And sometimes that is a breath of fresh air. It is really easy to get sucked into sort of the digital world and forget that there's a whole world outside that still needs to be experienced, that's still really good for us, that's a lot of fun, that's engaging on a social level. A lot of us, I work alone. I talk to a camera on the weekends. Like, it's a very solitary job. And so having something physical, joining a sports league, things like that, not only are more physical, but it's a different type of sort of release and entertainment when you make friends with a similar hobby. where you go out and you do stuff together that's physical. You know, extremes of that would be learning how to fly, learning how to sail, things that are so completely unrelated to art and creating. They get you out of the house, they get you moving around, they get you meeting people. Those are good hobbies for artists and creators. Now, those are extreme because of cost and availability. Like, not everyone has access to little airports that teach that, and bodies of water. But those are just examples to sort of inspire and get you going. Some other extremes would be, stay with me on this, please. It's going to sound really, really strange. Axe throwing and knife throwing are really great hobbies for artists. And you're like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just a really good stress relief to throw stuff that's sharp. It just is. I think everybody needs fun, weird stress relievers. And for some reason, like axe throwing and knife throwing are really fun. It's like darts, but it's been leveled up. Yeah, I just lost a couple of you with that one. I'm completely serious. You can buy throwing knives on Amazon. Like, we have a fun little restaurant where you can throw axes and stuff, and it's a ton of fun. I don't know why, but it's so unrelated to art and drawing and creating, and it gets you out there, it gets you laughing, and it gets you trying something that's so completely weird. Like, art and drawing is so minutia and detail, and it's very specific hand muscles, and it's very specific lighting, and going out in public and throwing things is just so completely unrelated that it's awesome and fun. So if you wanted some weird hobbies, and you wanted to know some fun things about me, I'm really good at knife throwing. Yeah, not a lot of people had that on their bingo card. I don't know what to tell you. It's hard to cultivate hobbies when art was your hobby and you loved it so much you turned it into your career. So finding hobbies that are so completely unique has been a challenge. And I'm telling you about some of the things I enjoy because they are so weird, because I create so much. I'm constantly creating every single day, constantly drawing. And a lot of artists and stuff really get into baking and cooking. But I find with baking and cooking, because you have to eat every day, that it turns into something that feels less like a hobby and more like a daily grind. And sometimes when you're not feeling your art, but you have deadlines and priorities and things you have to do, and art starts to become a little bit of a daily grind some days, where it's just, you want the day off, but you can't take it because it's art and it's your job and you have to do it. Baking and cooking doesn't work. It doesn't work for me, and so it may not work for you. That doesn't mean don't try it or get into like cake decorating or something. But again, that feels so incredibly creative that I know if I were to really get into something like that, I wouldn't be able to hold a hobby boundary with it. It's just too creative. It's too creating with my hands. So I have to pick hobbies that are so out of the normal wheelhouse of art and creating that, can you start to see the face? It's a really weird face, but I thought it'd be fun and try something weird. Anyway, so those are some of the things I enjoy. And again, some artists are able to get into a completely different medium and a completely different art form and make that their hobby. I have a lot of trouble with that, and it still feels like I'm doing art. And so I need my hobbies to feel completely different. And it's the same with like trying to like make candles or make bath products, make lotion, or, you know, lip balm. Like it starts to get really creative, and my mind starts to treat it like something I need to do on a professional level, because it's just leans into all those creative things my brain uses the same way. And I don't want to do that with my hobbies. I want to use other parts of my brain, other parts of my body. I don't want to trigger any of the things that my job triggers, that my art triggers. And I still love art, and I still love creating every day, and I never want to do anything else. It was always going to be art for me. But when it comes to trying to cultivate hobbies that are enjoyable, that I want to stick with, that you know, give me just enough spice and interest, that they're a little bit different and a little bit unique, I have to dig deep. I have to dig deep to find stuff. And it's been a really interesting journey trying to find weird, unique things that don't trigger my creativity and make me become like obsessive and trying to do it every day, like I do my art, like a job. I don't want to treat my hobbies like a job. And the temptation to do that is legitimate, and it's real, and it's hard to turn off. Like, my brain is really hard to turn off with certain things. And it's a topic I know other artists have a lot of trouble with, because it's not like discussed or talked about at length. Like, what do we do? Artists love art. That's why it became our job. Like, that's why we do it every day. It's why we work on projects and have commissions, and, you know, trying to cultivate other interests and different things can be just really, really difficult. And so I am giving you the best ones I know of that have worked for me, that have been successful for me. Again, I have multiple gardens. So I have some outside, I have some inside, but I'm just going to show you my inside one, because again, I'm not trying to show you where I live because some of my gardens are very specific. We take into consideration plants that our kids really, really enjoy. So they are involved in the garden process. We grow things that everybody loves. I can tell you my husband really loves ferns. We have so many ferns. But again, we live in an area with high humidity, so that works. But I'll just show you the kitchen counter. The kitchen counter garden. And that's something I do in the spring. So I don't do any gardening in the fall. What I do in the fall and the winter is I make sure tools are clean, pots are clean. If they were annuals and they only grow for one season, I make sure everything's cleaned out, everything's stored properly. I go in and do an inventory. But this stuff isn't like I'm doing this every single month. I have months and months off in the wintertime where I don't do any gardening. I do other hobbies. I listen to music. I find different musicians and listen to stuff and dance around. Dancing's really fun. It's just different, and lots of reading in the winter when it's raining. Curling up with blankets and reading and enjoying that. Trying to cultivate hobbies as creatives is a problem. Creative people attack everything creatively, and we find creative solutions. You can force plants in the winter. You can force things to bloom. Like, again, you can buy grow lights, and you can buy stuff to simulate different seasons. Little heaters, little things. I've done like box mushroom growing kits. We grew pink oyster mushrooms. I don't even know if I have a photo of that. If I have a photo of it, I'll throw a photo up. If I don't, I don't. But growing mushrooms is one of those things where you see it within a couple weeks of all your hard work. So it's very satisfying and gratifying, and then in the end you can harvest it. It's a really quick thing. Oop, I think there's an ambulance. Sorry about that. But there's tons of different things you can grow. So you can just grow flowers to grow flowers. You can grow them as gifts. It's a fun gift to give. You can grow plants as medicinal for different ailments. Again, you can grow herbs. There's so many different types of plants and things you can do. Tons of garden companies online have free catalogs that you can check out. I have grown tomatoes inside in the winter. I've done some really weird things to try a thing. I grew a really tiny bush tomato in the wintertime. And you're like, but wait, you need bees to pollinate the flowers. You don't for tomatoes. So what you can do with a tomato is you flick the flower, like flick it, or you can take an electric toothbrush by the flower and turn it on, and the vibration dislodges the pollen, and you can pollinate tomato flowers inside in the wintertime. You can get really weird with it. The same can be true. You can do it with strawberries. You can grow those inside. There's so many weird things you can do with the gardening, and it doesn't have to be a seasonal thing. I do it seasonally, again, so I don't burn out, because when I glom on to something I really love, I tend to be 150% with it, and that's a me problem, not a you problem. So I have to have clear boundaries and things that turn on and off, so it's something I really, really look forward to without getting tired of it, but still finding it exciting. And some people really don't like gardening because, again, the dirt and bugs and, like, it's not for everyone. But try reading, try books. There are a bunch of large library systems where you can go online and you can get ebooks if you don't want to leave the privacy of your own home. It can be tons of fun. There are book clubs and different types of activities with the public library system. Ours has like a movie night, and there's like a Lego club, and I think there's like a knitting thing. There's a bunch of really social activities through the library that are tons of fun. It's a great group of people that enjoy reading. I'm there. It can't be all bad. And again, music. If you like concerts and you like going outside and being outside, if you work inside all the time, is a really great shift for your brain, for your body, for your mental strength. It's just a completely different thing that engages. And so doing like summer concerts and having something fun like that to look forward to can be a ton of fun. Plus, summer concerts are kind of more budget than, say, doing like arena concerts all the time. That can get kind of costly. So again, you have to think about budget, time constraints. You know, the other issue is sort of, you try and develop a hobby and you spend a lot of money investing in it, and maybe it's not something you enjoy, or it's something that you didn't think was so time intensive, but it really can be. Like, do some online reading, ask some people, ask your neighbors. If you see them in the garden and you're curious about gardening, ask them about it. Talk to your local librarians. They are literally the wealth of information that we all strive to be when we grow up. As far as like axe throwing and hatchet throwing and knife throwing, I don't know what to tell you. That could be really niche to where I live. Again, you can buy throwing knives online, but you need a safe space, a safe place to do that, to store them. Be very, very careful. But it is really enjoyable because it's like instant. It's instant. There's a start, there's an end, it's a different location, it's social, it's just weird enough. And I'm gonna be for real, a lot of us artists are kind of strange. We're a strange group of birds, and we're awesome like that. And I think for that reason, we try things that are outside of our comfort zone because we're artists. Like, I just think artists and creators are some of the most interesting people that really should be invited to every party. Invite artists to every party, you'll always be glad you did. I am not a drinker. I used to be. I'm not. I am sober. So doing things like bars and partying and things like that, I would not consider those a hobby. Those would not be enjoyable for me. But music and dancing and throwing knives and growing little flowers is tons of fun. These have been the hobbies I have been the most successful at maintaining, at having, at cultivating, at discussing and talking about, meeting people that have felt the most like, there's still a sense of pride and accomplishment, but on a different level. And most of them don't cost very much, which is awesome. You could literally do reading for free. You just need to get a library card. So, what happens to your hobby when it becomes your job? You lose your hobby. And you have to go out and find new ones. You have to cultivate new ones. You have to try your hand at new ones. You have to think outside of the sketchbook and not be afraid to get a little weird with it. Again, for those of you with access and budgets, like flying and sailing and just, standing paddleboard, canoeing, really weird, strange things, paragliding, spelunking, it's like cave diving, just things that get you out and doing things so completely unrelated to art are my best recommendation. Things that have a start and an end, things that are seasonal, things you can look forward to, like winter sports, like skiing or snowboarding, things like that, I think are the most successful. Because it gives us a long-term goal. It gives us time, if we're saving up for new gear. There's just a lot of perks to doing things that are just seasonal. It's a hobby you can never burn out from if you're constantly looking forward to it and making plans and, So consider a kind of physical activity. Consider a mental activity. Like reading, but there's also, games, like different types of cognitive games, Sudoku, things like that. And then gardening. You can eat what you grow if you want. You don't have to. And for those of you that really think I've lost the plot, grab some knives. And you'll see what I mean. It's just a really weird thing that's so unrelated to art that it's fun. And again, you can't do it in the rain. We have a hatchet place where we can throw the hatchets. That's indoor, but it's not open all year round. So find your thing. Find your thing, and don't be afraid to ask other artists and other creators. Like, hey, what's your thing? What do you enjoy doing? And see what they say. And maybe their hobbies are other creative making things, and maybe they're completely weird and random, And I would be interested in hearing some of your hobbies. Are they as wild and wonderful as mine? I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I didn't freak you out too much. I think it's an important topic. Cultivating things as artists. Safe places, safe spaces, talking about weird stuff. Supporting each other, understanding that we need things. As artists, we need things. We need hobbies, and we still need to create. We still need to have all the stuff. But understanding that sometimes it just doesn't work that way because of how we are, how our brains are, how our thought process is. I mean, I tried wheel throwing pottery and I absolutely loved it, but It became a thing where I did Christmas presents for everyone. And so I was in the studio like every other day. It wasn't a hobby. It became work. And it was enjoyable work, and I absolutely loved it. But it wasn't a hobby. So I hope this video sort of resonated. I hope it gave you some ideas. If nothing else, I hope it was entertaining. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful week, and I will talk to you later. Bye.